5 things that I believe are the categories of to be rich: family, faith, community, health, and wealth.
Hmm.
Don't let anyone define what rich is to you.
Hmm.
You define it.
How do you pivot when you're entering into a negative space in your life? How do you take a unfortunate situation and turn it around? How do you change your mindset from something that is uncomfortable, unhappy? Perhaps you're in a very bad place in your life. Maybe life has treated you poorly. How do you take that and turn it around into a mission and a vision for a future that will lead you to enormous success? These are the questions that we're asking today with Mr. David Ibarra. I cannot wait for you to hear this podcast episode. It is by far one of my favorites so far. He is incredible at speaking and influencing, and he has shown with his own life how to achieve success from very, very humble beginnings. I hope you enjoy this one. Hello, and welcome to the Business of Happiness podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Tarryn MacCarthy, and today is going to be a phenomenal day because we have with us an author, speaker, success and leadership consultant who really has made some incredible strides in his own life. He has come from being in the foster care system in Utah to really exemplifying what we consider as a successful life now. And he's going to share with us some of his secrets. And most notably, I would love to introduce you to a book that he's most recently written called Stop Drifting, Become the Switch Master of Your Own Thought and Pivot to Positive. Please welcome Mr. David Ibarra. Welcome, David.
Well, thank you very much for the invitation, Taryn. I appreciate it. And I'm
Oh,
delighted to be here.
I'm so happy to have you. I was just saying to you as we were chatting before we started recording how I've been researching you and studying you online, and I'm absolutely fascinated by the journey that you have taken throughout your lifetime. Tell us a little bit about how it started, even go back as far as being in the foster
Mhm.
care system and how you've been able to make such a success of yourself along the way.
Well, first of all, I'd like to, start by saying every one of us have a journey. We don't get to choose where we start in life, but we certainly get to choose how we end it and live it.
Hmm.
And so, accepting the journey and the obstacles that one must overcome, I think, is the first task that one's got to recognize. But I started life in a very non-traditional childhood in Salt Lake City, Utah. I'm the son of a Mexican migrant worker from Oaxaca, Mexico, who came to the United States at 15 years old to
Hmm.
pick fruit in Spanish Fork, Utah. He later married a white Mormon young lady from Salina, Utah. And back in that time period in Utah, in many parts of our country, the interracial marriages was not a thing to do, and it
Hmm.
certainly wasn't in Utah. And there was a lot of pushback. And at any rate, my parents divorced when right after I was born, and my father got drafted, went to Germany during the Korean crisis, and my mother just couldn't handle the responsibility that she was given, and decided that it was best for her and us to turn us over to the Utah foster care system when I was 1 and my brother was 2. And it's difficult when you get left somewhere, you don't know anybody, but your mother never comes back.
Hmm.
And that was the first thing that I really had to get my arms around. And I'm only 1, and my brother's 2, and the first 5 years was not pleasant for me. But I think you come to a point that you figure out that you just got to get through it, or you give up. And for me, I had a dad that would come back and visit me, and God, I remember the ritual that he had every time that he left was he put Mickey, my brother, on one knee and me on the other, and he would tell us, look, this is the situation we're in. We can't change it. There's nothing we can do about it, but we got to get through it. And then he would look to my brother and say, it's your responsibility to take care of your younger brother, make sure that he's safe
Hmm.
and feels that he matters. And that's how it was left. I often wondered why my dad never just took us himself.
Mm.
And later I found out when I was 30 years old that my dad was undocumented, and the threat of him intervening was constantly there, that he would be reported. And so, at any rate, he didn't. When I was 14, I couldn't stay in Utah. There was no way that I could take the uh, comments racially related. It was difficult for me in school. I was in trouble. And I pushed and pushed and pushed until they allowed me to leave and rejoin my father. I was 14, my brother was 15, and off on the Greyhound bus and cardboard boxes with our stuff, we went at 14 and 15. But that was the beginning. And I learned a lot from that. And
Mm.
mostly is, how do you overcome adversity and defeat and look for the seed of its equivalent benefit? And it's always there if you're willing to look.
So, what was the equivalent seed of benefit for you in that moment? What was it?
I've made a wonderful living as a problem solver. And
Mm.
some things you don't get to figure out right away, but the one thing that I learned is to put action into motion. You got to go forward. You got to get through it. And I believe that my early non-traditional childhood taught me to be a problem solver. It taught me how to get along in school where oftentimes it felt like I wasn't wanted, into a particular area in Utah that wasn't very forgiving for a kid of color, and how to handle the emotional feelings of wanted to cry, wanted to be emotional,
Mm.
and how is it that you can pivot into from a negative fear to a positive and joy, and I just used, really early on, was able to go through this exercise where I would imagine the way it's going to be, not the
Ah.
way it is, the way it's going to be. And once you make that pivot and you see something positive, negative fear and joy cannot live in the same space. And so if you can pivot to positive and get into that space, then like attracts like, positive joy attracts positive and joy, and negative and fear attract negative and fear. So that's what I learned to do early. And I ended up having creating a living by doing it and teaching others to do the same.
So, when was the first time you recognized the power of this practice? When you realized, well, if I put my mindset to positivity and recognizing the strengths that I have, that I can actually turn my reality around. When was the first time you
Well,
remember feeling that?
I could tell you this is that the first time that that occurred for me is it was 18 years old, um, and I didn't become an expert at it until I was 40. I think the emotion that drove me in the first 35, 40 years of my life was fear. And the switch to having the emotion that drives me as joy just created a way different life. But when I was 18 years old, I was in trouble. I lived in a tough neighborhood. I was a football player, got hurt, wasn't going to play football, hadn't prepared myself for college. I didn't read well. I didn't read at all if I could help it. And I ended up having to get a job while I was going to junior college as a dishwasher just to make ends meet. I was on my own, 17 and a half, and on my own. And I got a job that I thought would be the most insignificant job in my life, a dishwasher job at Farrell's Ice Cream Parlor Restaurant. And then by happenstance, I meet the owner who visited. He spent some time with me trying to convince me that my job was the most important job in the restaurant because I protected the real china, the real silver from getting in front of folks that were experiencing a celebration, and that Farrell's was a place of memory building and not ice cream. It was memory building, which where events happened. And that next morning he had a meeting, and I'll never forget, he told everybody to stand up. And this is where I learned the power of theming and purpose. Stand up. And he says, okay, I want you to all recite our purpose.
Mm.
Everybody looked at each other and they didn't know. And he looked at the manager, I'll never forget. And right then I realized this was a mentoring exercise for the manager, showing him why it was important to do what he didn't do. And he says, well, that's okay. I'll start. Farrell's features fabulous food and fantastic fountain fantasies for frolicking, fun-filled, festive families. We're in the memory business. People come here and they leave with a smile and a little dose of happy-itis. And then he had us all stand up and recite it again and again until we were yelling it. And then he said, don't you ever open this restaurant again without getting in a circle and cheering this mission statement 3 times. And that's where I first learned the power of what was he doing. He was seeding the subconscious with an idea.
Mm.
The subconscious only job is to find a way to create the reality of that idea and send it back to the conscious to be acted upon.
Mhm.
And I started thinking of that. And later he told me that I asked him as I was leaving, I said, Mr. Farrell, I waited till everybody was gone. I didn't want to look like I was kissing up. And I said, Mr. Farrell, I said, can I ask you something? And he said, sure. How does it feel to know what you want? Because I don't know what I want. I don't even know what I want to be. And he said, you hold on. And he went out to his car, came back, handed me a book. And he told me that if I read it 3 times, that every time he visited the Sacramento Farrells, he would spend time with me as a mentor. I read it, and he did for the rest of his life.
Wow.
And the book was Think and Grow Rich by Dr. Napoleon Hill. And that's when everything changed for me.
What an incredible man.
Yes, unbelievable.
What an incredible man.
And
And
at the end, before it was all over, he told me once I had, from dishwasher, I ended up buying a Farrell's franchise for Utah and came back to Salt Lake City. By the time I'm 28, I have 4 restaurants by the time I'm 30. I have 7 businesses today. I'm the largest licensee of Think and Grow Rich seminars in the world. I have China, Singapore, Mexico, Latin America, the Latin Caribbean. And he told me that there would be a price. And while my book is fiction, this story is in my book with one of the characters that is shaped after me. But I asked him, well, what was that price going to be?
yeah.
And he says, well, you got it. Now you have to give it in time tithing until you give it to everyone. Now you are a disciple of Think and Grow Rich, not just a reader.
Hmm.
So spread it. And I expect you to do it all your life. And I have done over 1,000 free coaching sessions over the last 30 years. And I started a foundation. I've put 105 kids through college. While I never finished college, I've paid for 105 to finish college.
Wow. That's an incredible story. Thank you for all that you do. I just have to pause right now and say thank you. That is an absolutely incredible legacy that you have left, that he left in you, and that you have gone on to leave in thousands. That's
I'm
amazing.
truly blessed and thankful that, what an incredible day that was. That
Yeah.
and Mr. Farrell changed so many people's lives.
No,
So many.
that's amazing. It's so amazing. And what's so apparent is that ripple effect that
Mhm.
he just kicked off, or really Napoleon Hill kicked off,
Yes.
just by having the courage and the confidence and the audacity, really, to write that book. And
Mhm.
then watching the ripple effects of all the people who would read that book and then have more influence on many more. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, I'm honored to consider myself a disciple of Napoleon Hill, and I
Mm,
count Dr. Hill as one of my mentors,
mm,
even though I've never met him.
Amazing.
He's with me all the time, whispering to me.
You know, this story sounds so incredible and really it could be a movie. But my question to you is I know that along the way there were people who might have instilled some doubt in you. This
Oh,
seems so fantastical decades later, but it wasn't when you started. When you said, I'm going to mentor people with ice cream, and have this mission, that's a scary endeavor that many people might have
mhm.
questioned along the way. So, what is your advice for those people who think that they have this wonderful gift to give? Maybe it's about ice cream and mentorship or something equally as crazy
Mhm.
when they hear those negative influences or those
Well,
negative stories.
well, I tell you, is that the moment that you think of something good and you think of something that's really fabulous to do, and the very next thought is a whisper from Dr. Doubt.
Mm,
Hey, are you sure you can do that?
mm.
You can't do that? And you got to decide whether you're going to listen to the whispers uninvited of Dr. Doubt, or to create your purpose and create the faith based actions to follow it, and develop a specialized talent team to add to the things that you don't know. And the
Mm.
secret in life is just knowing what you know what you don't know, and then bring somebody in who knows it and accept that knowledge as if it's your own to go forward. And that's where all of us can act like a genius, because when we add other minds to ours, that's genius. Now, as far as whispering, the negative is that I tell everybody in the seminars that we give that when you decide what you want to do, a purpose, don't share it with anyone. You cannot get out. Controlled enthusiasm is important, but sometimes we get out of controlled enthusiasm and we share everything we're going to do, and then we're going to do, and then we're going to do, and then we're going to do. And it's our own loved ones that
Yeah,
whisper the negative to us. And
absolutely.
most oftentimes, it's people that are friends or relatives, and the relatives you can't change, the friends you can. And for me, I only want to associate with the folks that I would consider uh, having the ability to be on my specialized talent team or another's, because they understand what it means to support the dreams, the purpose of another, and to not, uh, when you ask somebody, what do you think? And be careful, because if it's somebody that doesn't have a specialized knowledge, they're going to tell you, and that's a doubt. So it's something that I started early, is to never share my written goals with anybody other than the most trusted people around me that had to also be goal setters and scorekeepers.
Mm.
Otherwise, I'm not sharing it.
Now, you had to share it with your team. You had to create a team that you would share, just as Mr. Farrell did with his
There's,
team. He
there's
shared his vision of what the ice cream parlor would be.
absolutely. But
Mhm.
again, when you decide what you want to do, and I have a company, we're very successful, and I'll tell you what, we don't have people leave, and they're disciples of what we do. Give before you get. And we develop these 17 principles in others, but you choose people not just by qualifications, but also by their level of desire.
Mm.
And if they have a high level of desire and lack in some qualifications, that can always be trained and mentored. So we have folks that believe the same things that I do, in the same level of passion as I do, or they're not on our specialized talent team. And everybody shares in whatever revenues that we achieve. I get criticized by sometimes my advisors that CPAs and what have you, is that I give about 50%, 45 to 50% of everything that we bring in, give back to your specialized talent team. And the number's supposed to be 30. Well, who said that? And I always remind my CPA, it's about the pile at the end that you ought to worry about, not the percentage to get to the pile at the end. And everybody ought to have a pile, not just money, but in gratitude, in strong feelings that I love doing what I do. So those are the kinds of folks that you bring on, and you just don't. You have to be very careful when you bring somebody on your team. Not one person that works with my group, not one is not a graduate of the Napoleon Hill Institute. Not
Oh,
one. And
that's your
even the
criteria.
operator, everyone. Mhm.
I was just going to ask you, how do you find your team members? And so you've established what somebody's values are based on something that they've put time and effort and
Mhm.
dedication towards. So by graduating from that program, you know that they have those certain values that you're going to need as skills on your team.
In 15 minutes, you can find out whether somebody's a giver or a taker, a producer or a consumer. And if they don't give, and produce and give some of that away, then you're not going to change them.
Hmm.
Don't have them join your team.
Interesting. You mentioned time tithing. Can you tell us a little bit more about what that is?
Well, early on, people tell me all the time that I work with that when I get to a certain level of wealth, I'm going to give. Well, why wait? I mean, there's, money is certainly important, but time is more important, just to be with someone. So Wednesday nights, my calendar's open, and somebody gets on it. If they cannot afford a performance coach, then they can get me if they're willing to wait. Now, while I used to do it every week, now I'm doing it about once a month, twice a month. I've done over 1,000 individuals in those nights, and some of them have gone on to build 20, 30 million dollar net worth companies. And the law that I have is that I can't benefit anything from it monetarily. It has to be time tithing, and when it gets good, if they want me to be on their board or they want me to do this or that, I can't. I can't participate. I can only give. I can't take, and that makes it real simple.
Wow. And time is one thing that we can all
Mhm.
give.
Yes, anybody can give time, so you don't have to wait. And when you give, you get.
I believe it. Yeah. So, something else that I'm noticing in you is that you have to feel confident and great about yourself in order to value the time that you have to give. If you're feeling down and depressed, it's hard to imagine that your time is worth anything to anyone. So, what
Mhm.
do you do to support that feel good feeling in yourself?
Well, one of the things that I do is the fifth step to success for me is before I start any initiative or even my day, I have to go through readiness exercise. I have to be ready. And what does that mean? When you exercise or you're going to run or you're running a training or voice lessons, you have an exercise. So I have a success exercise that I taught myself, and every morning, as soon as I get up and brush my teeth and start to shave, I listen. I turn on my iPad and I listen to a little bit of Dr. Hill, and then I go through an exercise. I pull up my mission statement and I read it out loud, just like Mr. Farrell taught me. I read out loud my initiatives for the week and the month and that are current. I have standards of my that are my customer voice of the customer, process, profit, and education, learning. And I read those standards, and then I have 44 things that I have to do every day to fulfill my responsibilities, and I read them out loud. Then I look at my schedule. I went on your website, listened to, I think, number 38, and just to get a little what were you all about, and real quick it was easy to determine. And then I look at the rest of my schedule, who's coming in to see me. I have 8 appointments today, and what is it that they are after, what is it they're hoping to
Mm,
gain, and then to prepare myself to be able to serve them in a way that they're not disappointed. Now, I know that the way that I developed a brain model exercise, that I know that 80% of your brain is the subconscious, and it's seeded by the subconscious with thought. So
mm,
I'm seeding my subconscious. My subconscious only job is to find a way to make it so and give it back to the conscious to be acted upon. And then the top of the brain is 5% of it is the imagination that connects to emotions of joy or fear, and that I'm only going to connect to the joy and the positive, maintain myself in a positive state of mind, prevent myself from listening to Dr. Doubt in a negative state of mind. And I realize I can win because you can only be in one state of mind at a time, positive or negative. So if I start to go negative, I immediately smile, think of 3 thoughts that I have in my head that really make me happy. That pivots me to positive. I can't be in negative and positive at the same time. And I'm going to operate within a positive state of mind. And then my value is there. My
mm.
value is there. People will come in because we can deliver. The value is there. And I feel very comfortable looking at somebody brand new and determining whether, frankly, I'm going to work with them.
Hmm.
Because if they came to me and then they want to doubt everything that we're going to talk about, I'll point it out. And if they want, well, that sounds good, but I don't think that will work for me. One of those types, well, then, they probably need to have a different coach.
If you're listening to this podcast, chances are you didn't get into business to be miserable. The problem is that people feel that if their business gets busier, if they start becoming more successful, that happiness will eventually set in. But it can actually get worse. This is why I created the Business of Happiness Prosperity Coaching. In this one-on-one coaching, we look at how to redefine success on your terms and re-find the joy and the passion in your dream. Visit me at thebizofhappiness.com and become the happiest business owner you know. Wow. I love that exercise that you just mentioned. When you're feeling in that negative space or Dr. Doubt starts creeping in, forcing yourself to activate those muscles that make you smile and almost insist on dopamine and endorphins rushing around inside
Exactly.
your body, just turning it around from a very chemical perspective, from a very cellular perspective, changing your attitude. I love that exercise. What other exercises do you have that you might just do automatically, but what do you recommend to your clients to pivot, as you say, pivot to the
Well,
positive?
I'll tell you what, one of the things that I learned early on is that, this vessel we live in, this mind body, it's also got to be taken care of. So for me, it's a 40-minute walk, and I meditate, no music, by myself. I don't want anybody walking with me in the morning. And then 4 to 5 times a week, I work out lightly with weights, 30 minutes, but nonstop, no rest, and do my abs. And then I eat right and take my vitamins. I've maintained my body fat at 6%. And I believe that's about where I was in high school. And it's for the purpose is I'm going to get more out of this vessel than it was intended to give. And your brain, nature, as we age, and you lose something, nature won't take something away from you without giving you something back. And when you lose youth, you gain wisdom. So if you can have your mind body right to where you can continue to work and work as long as you're happy, then why wouldn't you want to do it when you have the greatest level of wisdom? Now, I am not a young person. I'm 1 year away from 70, and I'm going to work till I'm 85, and I'm going to act and feel like I'm in my 50s. I'm positive of that, and I'm going to get more out of life. I'm going to get more out of life. And if you want to look at it from a money perspective, at the highest earning level as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Which makes you more able to give all that you want to give to everyone else around you.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really, really, really fabulous. Something that we wanted to talk about today is this kind of culture of, I don't want to say mediocrity, but just everybody's kind of falling comfortably into being either miserable or numb, escaping reality, escaping those bad feelings, either in drugs or alcohol or Netflix or gossip, or trying to just find a way to
Right.
escape feeling bad. And what's left is nobody's trying hard to feel good. Nobody's trying hard to get to a positive feeling. Give me a little bit of your perspective in that regard about this cultural idea of just kind of coasting or just being satisfied with what you have, even though it might be
Well,
miserable.
when we look at, there's been, thousands of studies on the gainfully employed, and 3% of our society have this ability to be purpose driven, being in control of their state of mind. 10% can partially when they're problem solving, but 60% just drift through the day. And that's why my book is non-drifting. It's to talk. I want to talk. I want to shake you. What are you going to get drifting? You
Mm.
have a choice to drift or non-drift. 60% of our society are just trying to get through the day, the week, the month, and into retirement, and then I'll be happy. Well, for heaven's sakes, you're only going to live about 6 more years. Are you really going to wait that long to be happy? And then 27% are so unhappy that their only job is to ruin companies and ruin the lives of others. So 1 out of every 4 people, and this scientifically been proven, that they're negative. And we look at our politics today, whether you're a Republican and you're far right, or whether you're a Democrat far left, these two parts of our political system are making all the noise. And they're screaming and yelling with no accuracy of thought. We're the greatest country on earth. Well, I don't believe we're the greatest country on earth. I think we aspire to be. We look at our Constitution, our Bill of Rights. Those were the things that we aspired to be. And if we ever stop wanting to judge ourselves and aspire to continue this journey, we simply won't be. And
Mm.
there's nothing wrong with saying, we haven't quite made it in healthcare. We haven't quite made it in racial relations. We haven't quite made it. We are a country that dared to aspire to be great, not just to we're the greatest based on what. And that's where these two groups are screaming and yelling. Meanwhile, the folks that live in the middle, and that's where I believe I am, we want to get something done. And now there's just nothing but noise, and negative is getting stronger
Mm.
because it's powerful, and positive is getting snuffed out and not heard. So we can't give up. We've got to continue.
Mm.
I've got to meet with more people, and I want to meet with business owners that have associates, team. They call them employees, a team, and that we can affect the adult. My mission in life is to work with employed adults who get up on Monday mornings and quietly go to work, suffocating in unhappiness, committing spiritual suicide. And if we can make the work experience good, because it's always lingers in your mind if you don't have enough money, if you're not successful, if you're drifting from job to job, if we can make that great, they can leave work
Mm.
and shut it off and show up a better parent, a better partner, a better neighbor. And we have a better city, a better state, and a better country, one person at a time. That's my mission.
I love it. I love your mission. Keep going. I believe in your mission wholeheartedly because I really do think that it has to start with one person at a time. And in terms of all the incredible leaders that we have in our country, small business owners, large business owners, all the leaders that have the ability to positively impact their team members in a really impactful way. What is something that you advise your leaders in terms of galvanizing their team, in terms of finding that nugget of truth within them? How do you do that
Yeah.
as a leader?
Well, the first thing that I do with leaders is I remind them is that the solutions for our society is not going to come from elected officials, most likely.
Hmm.
Our political system is, in fact, in my view, broke, but our business leadership is not. And that's where it really matters because you're interacting with people on a daily basis. You can be a coach and teach somebody to do an act, and that's important. But if you're not a mentor that's getting personal with the development of the folks that have joined you, then they're never going to get to self-actualization and to be inspired. And once you get somebody inspired, you will gain market share. So there's two components for success. Capital, most people come to me because they want to grow their capital or they want to protect it. I don't have one client that isn't a bona fide millionaire in my whole group of business. And that makes me really want to pinch myself too, this kid from foster care that the folks are coming to, but they're looking for the secret sauce, the secret of success. It's the other half, talent. And if you have capital without talent, you will fail. If you have talent with no capital, you will fail. So these two pieces are meant together to work in harmony. And you change your company, you grow your market share. If you change your company and you empower people to feel good, then we change cities, we change neighborhoods, and we change our country. And I believe it's a responsibility of business leaders, of company leaders, because it's not going to happen in the political field.
Absolutely.
Not anytime soon.
Okay, so I'm a business leader. I have a team of 20 people and I sell ice cream, or let's change it up a little bit. I sell hamburgers. How do I find my purpose? If I've been doing this
Mhm.
all along the wrong way, I've been focusing strictly on the financial gain and focusing
Sure.
just on money. How do I find a purpose that I can stand behind?
Well, first of all, I like to talk about in my view, I have taken Dr. Hill's work and completely rewritten it. 518 pages, eliminating 100, frankly, and making the language more easily read. And then we introduce that to every associate here. But the one thing that I found that it all starts with, we can talk about this. Every 5 years, corporate America will change a word, and instead of calling it a vision, they'll call
Mm,
it a mission, and
hmm.
now they'll call it find your why.
Yeah,
And we just keep taking the same things and putting a new word on it,
yeah.
and then we can write a new book and sell it, and it's the same stuff. But I found that in for me, I want to talk to somebody and I just ask them a simple question that's not so simple to answer sometimes. I want you to think about what you want. And I want to introduce five things that I believe are the categories of to be rich:
Mm,
family, faith, community, health, and wealth.
mm,
Don't let anyone define what rich is to you.
mm,
You define it. And then once you've defined what you want, now we can start to build a mission statement or purpose statement. And I call it a what I want statement. I just want to get real simple. And then it is what am I willing to give to get?
mm.
Now we're building something that has meaning. And I don't need to bring in a corporate facilitator to go through all of these exercises and fall off a ladder onto somebody's, you know, let's just talk, regular, just talk. What do you want?
Mm.
What do you want? And to be able to listen and remind them, this is not just about money. It's family, faith, community, health, and wealth.
Mm.
What are you willing to give to get? And it's going to start with a goal. It's not going to start with a life purpose. I didn't find my life purpose that I shared with you working with employed adults until I was well in my 40s.
Mm.
But I had a whole lot of goals. I went from the restaurant business to the automotive business. I'm one of the largest in the space that I'm in. We're building auto malls. We're building dealerships. We're working on a software company we own. We do seminars from China to Mexico, the Americas. It started with ice cream,
Mm.
but you're selling something, and you're always got to be marketing something. So why don't you start by marketing you?
Wow.
That's what we teach. Just keep it simple. What do
Do
you
you
want?
think that people don't take the time to ask themselves that question? Do you think that that's what's happened in our society is that we don't take the time to sit with ourselves and have that quiet 45-minute walk in the woods and
Yeah.
ask ourselves those deep questions without the
Well,
noise of other
mhm.
people's opinion?
Even when we look at Dr. Hill's work, which to me, Dr. Hill is, it means everything to me, the work that he did. But I've made some corrections in his work, and I dared to do that. It's one of his disciples. He talks about the importance of finding your definiteness of purpose, your life purpose.
Mm,
It doesn't start that way. So if you can't find the definite of purpose, your life purpose, then that means you don't start.
mm,
Start with a goal,
mm.
a small goal, and then another goal, and find the destination to those goals and be willing to look left and right as you're traveling. And you'll find the things that just make goosebumps go in your scalp. And those are the things that you like. Write them down, and along the way, you'll find your life purpose. But don't start off by saying, before I start, I'm going to determine my life purpose. I added in all of the writings that we do with Dr. Hill, goal in search of your life purpose. Start with goals.
Ah,
So anyone can start with a goal. And I start, what do you want? And somebody will say to me, like in my book, what do you want? And Tyler, one of the sales, a person at an automobile dealership. Well, if I could make 6,000, that would, okay, great. So you want to make 6,000. What would you do to get 6,000? How many vehicles would you have to sell? He divides it. I'd have to sell 17. Okay. You want to make $6,000 and sell 17 units. What are you willing to do in order to sell the units? Now you go back to the processes and maintaining a positive state of mind so that you can identify someone's needs, satisfy someone's needs with human contact excellent, and you'll sell a car, not only one, you'll sell 17 and get what you want. Once that occurs, now it's, and now I want, and we go to the next, the next, the next. Maslow's hierarchy of needs sat, to survive ego, self-actualization. It is the way that the game of life was set up. Only problem is we were put here and we came here. Nobody gave us the rules to the game. And we believe we give the rules to the game of life. Enjoy it. It doesn't last long.
And that's the key, right? That's the key, enjoying it along the way, which is courageous, Oh my gosh, this is absolutely a phenomenal conversation. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us. How can we find your book? Because I have a feeling that many people listening to this podcast episode are going to want to read more and find out more about you.
The book's available on Amazon, hard copy, soft, in Spanish and audio. And it's also, you can learn more about me easily at davidibarra.com. And that talks about everything that we do. We have other websites I won't give you because there's too many over each of the companies that we have. But davidibarra.com is where you can learn about me and the services that we offer, and Amazon for the book, or you can buy it at davidibarra.com as well.
Wonderful. And we'll put all those links for our listeners in the show notes so that they can access all your works. And I have for you now, David, the last 3 questions that I love to pose to all my guests on the show, because it's a fascinating insight to the variety of people's responses and also how they've affected you in your life and in your success. So my first question to you is, what is your superpower?
My superpower is the ability to become this. I became the switch master of my own thought and pivot to positive. And it is amazing. It is to be, when you can maintain yourself in a positive state of mind, there is nothing you can't get if you really want it. Nothing. That's my superpower.
That
Positive
really is.
state of mind.
It really is an incredible superpower. And, it reminds me, I would love to know your opinion about this. There's right now this idea of toxic positivity, kind of people saying that there's too much positivity, that it's not focusing on the reality of the situation. What is your response when someone brings that to you?
Well, the first thing of it is that is Dr. Doubt's uninvited whispers. And I remind myself and everybody around me that when we look at this, 87% of society are not goal setters and scorekeepers. And so they think that stuff like Napoleon Hill or to want to live a better life is, oh, you're crazy. And they want to be negative about it. Well, it's easy to understand. There's 13% that are non-drifters most of the time, and 87% that aren't. So be careful of who you share your goals with. And I just simply want to get to my destination. And I don't see them because I don't look in my rear view mirror. I look forward, and it's not dusty when you're looking forward.
Wow, it's powerful. It's powerful. What is your definition of happiness?
Well, my definition of happiness most often uh, is, people ask me all the time, why do you smile so much? Well, one, I'm pivoting. And two, is like anybody, I have my moments of sadness and unhappiness and loneliness. And I found that the antidote to happiness from a child even to now is to give, to serve. And when I'm unhappy, I simply can go. There's a place here in Utah called the Other Side Academy that works with folks from homelessness to drug addiction, and they do such great work. Or the Other Side Village, and just get involved to giving, and you find yourself released of the doubts that came into you and the unhappiness that sometimes you can't ever identify as to why they occurred. But certainly I understand that I am a product of my beginning, and I'm going to feel some of what little David used to feel.
Mm.
But real quickly, I can get out of it by smiling and getting busy doing something for others. And then I always feel good. And then there's those that criticize. David, you give too much money. You do too much. You do too much. Why do you smile all the time? And I said, I smile a lot because sometimes I'm unhappy a lot, but I don't stay unhappy very darn long.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the secret. Just being able to pivot, have that
Yeah.
power of the pivot.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I have a great life. I have a great life, and I'm thankful for every moment of it.
Very cool. Um, One more question to you. If I were to take all of the work that you've done and lose it, erase it, all of this incredible book that you've written and all the work that you've put up online, and you've got some incredible nuggets of truth on your website as well, and in all your interviews that you've done, if all of it were to disappear and you could leave us with one sentiment, knowing that everyone, all that 87% of people were able to hear you for the next 30 seconds, what would you leave us with?
There is nothing more powerful in life than understanding how the brain works. And I start off by understanding, first of all, how did I get where in a place that I didn't want to be? The model works the same. I seeded the subconscious with conscious thoughts of fear, and the job of the subconscious was to make it so.
Hmm.
And my imagination, like a light detector, was or a motion detector, was an emotion detector, and it was grabbing onto more and more and more until it moved me to the negative nut house, which in my mind is hell, living hell.
Mm,
But the formula is the same.
mm,
So once I understood that, I became an expert,
mm,
but it was just expert by grabbing the wrong emotion. So
mm.
once I was able to grab the joy emotion and see the subconscious, I went to a positive state of mind instead of a negative state of mind, and everything changed for me. So understanding how our brains work, and we're the only creature on earth that has the ability to be in charge of our thought. No
Mm,
one can hurt you, no one, unless you allow them.
mm,
You cannot live in a negative and woe is me unless you seed it yourself.
mm.
So it's clear you can live in a negative state or a positive state. You can talk to the creator when if you wish, by being in a positive state. If you have a purpose and you've done your actions, you can ask for help if you get lost, and you'll get it. Or you can be in a negative state and listen to the uninvited whispers of Dr. Doubt, the adversary. And it's easy. It's your choice. I choose positive.
Fabulous. Thank you for all that you do. Thank you for your leadership and for your mission and for your purpose in this world. I am so grateful to you, and I feel the passion behind every sentiment that you have, and I feel that this has just been such a big part of who you are. It's become who you are.
Well, thank you very much for the invitation this
Yeah.
morning. I really appreciate it.
And thank you to all of you for listening today on this episode. I hope that you've been as impacted by Mr. Ibarra's words as I have. He's definitely made a huge difference in how I see the world. And until next time, when you feel good, you can do good. Bye bye.